Hey friends, my name's Steven with Leviathan Snakes, and for this week's ball python video, we are going to be talking about the stages that a ball python project goes through. And it doesn't mean that they're going to hit every single stage, or that there's even really actual lines or designations, but ways that you can think of a ball python project, because I think that it's really important to understand the stage that the project is when you are deciding to invest in it. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you do, please like, comment, subscribe, and let's get to it. This boy right here, his name is Louie, and he is our blue-eyed leucistic ball python, and his morphs are Butter, Mojave, and then he also is 100% heterozygous for ghost. But for the purposes that we kind of have him in our breeding strategy, breeding projects, the 100% het ghost doesn't matter that much. Really, it's the fact that he is this absolutely stunning all-white snake with blue eyes. He's a blue-eyed leucistic, and I think that this project right here, Bells, Mystic Potions, all of this stuff, it's a really, really popular project that a lot of people work. The thing with this project is that these snakes are absolutely stunning, but because they are all white with blue eyes, there's not really a whole lot that you can do with them, at least in the Bell itself. You can use his genes for other projects, but Bells themselves are a perfect example of what we like to think of as pet projects. And Courtney talks about this a lot. The idea of when you are building out your ball python business, the strategy for your breeding projects, not to forget about pet owners. So when we say a pet project, or a project that's primarily designed to make animals that are going to be really, really attractive to pet owners, one of the things that a lot of pet owners are really, really cognizant of is price. So this is one of the defining features of a ball python project that's a pet project, is that the goal animal is probably about $500 or less. In addition to that, they're usually really, really visually stunning, and that they have a lot of demand with people who just want to own a ball python as a pet. They don't necessarily have an interest in breeding, or at least when they buy the animal, it's not necessarily because they want to breed. So Bells are like this. Mystic Potions are an excellent example. Bananas. All of these animals, all of these different combos, these morphs, things like that, are so popular with pet owners that you can take them to pretty much any show, doesn't matter what it is, local shows, and they will sell so quickly because they catch the eyes of people who are interested in ball pythons but maybe don't have one yet, or they have only a couple and they just want to have another one as a pet. So something like Bells are amazing animals, an amazing project to invest in because it doesn't require a whole bunch of money up front. The blue-eyed leucistic complex is fairly inexpensive in 2022. And they make such amazing snakes that hold their value now. At first they were $100,000. Now they're about, I would say, $300 to $500 range for a blue-eyed Lucy, depending on exactly what the genes are that makes it up. So if you are thinking about getting into ball pythons, try to find at least maybe one or two different pet projects, so that way if you are going to a local show, you are going to have animals that you can sell at those local shows very, very quickly. They're going to best serve the market of pet owners. So just something to keep in mind. The next stage of project I want to talk about has to deal with this girl. So I know she's little and it's going to be hard. We'll get some close-ups of her. But this is our girl, Miss Lemon Meringue, because she's a pied. So pied, clown, hypo, a lot of the established recessive projects form the backbone of so much of the ball python breeding community. And I think that this stage of project, which is what we kind of have labeled as established projects, these are really, really good for somebody who is looking at getting into breeding ball pythons. And generally speaking, like I said earlier, a lot of them are recessive based. Recessive or allelic, because I count the whole yellow belly complex in here, whether it's highway, freeways, stuff like that. And the defining characteristic for these projects is that they make some incredibly visually stunning animals, but often because they're recessive or because they require an allelic combination, it's not just one gene. So like a banana ball python is absolutely stunning, but because you compare a banana to a normal and get bananas, it's not so much of a project unless you're specifically going for a combo with banana. And then it might kind of come into here where it's an established project. So established projects often have a lot of people who are working on them. There's a lot of animals, there's a lot of availability. And this doesn't mean that the animals in established projects are inexpensive. There are some animals that, for example, like Justin Kabolka recently put out the Exanthic DG clown. And even though Exanthic clown and DG might be a slightly different, and I'll talk about that in the next kind of group of projects, Exanthic and clown are 100% established projects, but the way that you can combine different genes of established projects together can make something that's just leading edge, mind-blowing, and really, really financially valuable. So, when you are thinking of an established project, one of the characteristics of established projects, I kind of said this earlier, is that a lot of people are working them. So there's a lot of different opportunities, a lot of different options if you are trying to buy into it. If you are wanting to get into pied, you could go onto Morph Market, you could go to a local show, and you would have no shortage of pied or het pied animals to choose from, with thousands, or maybe not thousands, hundreds of different codoms that you could kind of work with and kind of pick as you are trying to decide, like, all right, what exactly do I want to do with my pied project? And it is this availability that I think is the defining characteristic of an established project, is that it isn't simply about putting an animal and exploring what it can do. Instead, you are able to find combos that have been made in the past, and based off of what other people have done, get the ingredients by purchasing them if you want, or buying the animals to make those ingredients that can make the end result. Essentially, there's so much people working it, there's so much availability that you can go any direction that you want. And you can do it relatively in a short amount of time. If you have enough money to invest, you could get leading edge pied animals in pretty much start your pied project at the very, very front of it, of where the entire community is. And it just depends on what's available, how much money are you willing to invest in it. So established projects have a lot of availability. They have a lot of different people working it, which is good because that also means that they have a really big established market for that project. And overall, I think that these projects, pied, clown, hypo, things like that, they form the bedrock of really any business or ball python related breeding business, because this is where so much of like value comes from, both for breeders, for keepers, because a single gene pied is a beautiful animal and it's still within the pet range too. So just something to keep in mind, picking, and most people do this, but picking an established project that you are going to specialize in is going to be really, really beneficial. This girl here is not actually ours. She is our friend Troy's from Balls and Strikes Pythons, and she is a pastel inchy chocolate desert ghost, but she is a perfect example of this next type of project, this next stage. And not all ball python projects hit this stage, but it's what I kind of refer to as like the hot projects. So in hot is relative, it just kind of depends on how much interest is in the project. But right now, I think no doubt everybody would say Desert Ghost is like the hot morph right now, the project, because it goes so well with so many different things. Now, the hot projects can be new, they can be established. Like, I think that Red Stripe is an example of an established project that became hot after combos were discovered, specifically the clown combos with the Pompeii and everything, that just ups the demand. And the defining characteristic of like hot projects is that for whatever reason, the demand for that project, the demand for those genes is so strong that the supply cannot keep up with it. And because of this, the prices just increase and increase and increase. Because Desert Ghosts haven't always been at the level that they are now. Like Troy was telling us, when he was like really getting into Desert Ghost, they were closer to like $400 or $500 range for a visual Desert Ghost female, rather than the prices they are now, where it might be like around $1,000. So really, really hot projects have a lot of hype behind them. They have a lot of people wanting to invest in them. They are really, really good because they can give this like opportunity to create animals and hatchlings specifically that are going to be in high demand. But the thing with the hot projects is at a certain point, everybody who wants to invest in that new project will have already bought their animals. So if you are trying to get into Desert Ghost right now, and you buy single gene Desert Ghosts, het Desert Ghosts, and you raise them up 3 years from now, the price may not be the same as it is like right now for Desert Ghost as it will be once you have hatchlings to sell. So when you are looking at hot projects, I tend to believe that the best way to do it is to try to anticipate where the project is going to go next, not necessarily where it's at right now. Part of the reason why we're trying to go the double het route is so many different people are working on double recessive projects that there's just not enough supply to keep up with all of the demand for them. And DG Sunsets, which haven't been made yet, but we're super excited to be able to like start our way in that project with Troy. We think that they're gonna be awesome, so that's kind of like one of the reasons why we want to take the Desert Ghost project, which is super hot right now, and try to anticipate where it will go in the future. So when you're looking at hot projects, don't simply think of here are combos that are currently available like you would with an established project. Instead, try to anticipate what's going to be the next leading edge of it. So just something to keep in mind when you are considering investing in something that's really hot like DG, Ultramel, things like that. The next type of project that I want to talk about are explorative projects. And this girl right here, this is Cora. She is our leopard yellow belly sunset female. She is a really good example of an explorative project. So when we got her because we wanted to be able to pair het sunset males to a visual female so we didn't have to worry about like the reduced odds of like the 1 in 4 chance to hit a visual, as well as the 66% pos het female, or pos het animals that would be produced from those pairings. Instead, we wanted to have at least one visual sunset that we were growing up before we were producing our own sunsets. That way, if we have a red stripe yellow belly het sunset male that we produce this year, or a inchy chocolate double het DG sunset that we hopefully will produce this year with our collab project, that we could pair like those males to her in order to guarantee that all of them will be het sunset and double our odds of hitting the visual sunsets from them. Now, when we were looking at getting into a high-end project, we weren't really thinking about this, but it is a 100% a limitation of the high-end, like explorative projects, is that in order to really explore the project, you need so many different holdbacks. So this year alone, we are pairing our sunset male to 5 different females, and let's say that every single one goes, all of them give us 8 eggs in their clutch. This is like a little bit bigger than average. I think last year we ended up like between 6 and 7 eggs per clutch. Now, if you hit all of those conditions, that means that we would have 40 eggs, 40 potential snakes that would be sunset or het sunset for this year. When we were planning out all our potential holdbacks, originally I think I wanted like 27 holdbacks from those if we hit the exact odds and combos that we wanted, which we already knew was too much. But this is like a really good illustration, is that when you are working explorative projects, the people who are already in it often are holding back so many different snakes that there isn't very much availability for people who want to buy into the new project. So if somebody's wanting to buy into Sunset right now, and you wanted to buy, let's say, het sunset females and grow them up, and then later on you get a visual male. If you go into Morph Market right now, this is January 2022, I don't know the exact number, but I'm pretty sure there are less than 10 het sunset females on Morph Market, period. The entire, at least in like North American Morph Market, the entire country, entire continent, I guess, has less than 10 het sunset females that are available for purchase to the general public. So when you are considering getting into one of these projects, it's pretty key that you are going to want to produce your own hets. You are going to want to be able to produce your own ingredients for the project. And this is what constitutes all of the holdbacks that are needed for it. And if you don't have very much space, or if you don't have like the rodent production that you need, or if you don't want to pay for the rodent bill for all of the different holdbacks that you need, it might be something that limits you from really diving deep into a project. So I think that Explorative projects are super fun. You get the chance to find brand new combos and get a project like further into the public's eye. And I think that this is super, super critical to the hobby, and I think it's where a lot of the fun is. But there's a huge investment, both monetary, time, and effort, because of how many animals you need, how much money is needed to actually buy into the project, and how much time it takes to grow up an animal, produce your own hets, grow up those hets, and then pair them back for a chance to hit your end goal. So I really, really like the Sunset project, and Puzzle is like this, Monsoon, Zebra. There's several projects that are like this. I think they're super cool. I think they're super rewarding, but you should be aware of all of the costs, all of the investment that's needed before you actually dive into them. Last type of project that I want to talk about for this video is probably one of the funnest, coolest, different types of projects that are out there, but they are Dinker projects. And this boy right here, his name is Levi. He is a little hatchling. He is actually a captive hatched import that we bought from Outback Reptiles he's from Africa. And he is one of our 2 Dinker projects. And I think that Dinker projects are really fun and really cool. So Dinker projects, just in case anybody is maybe new to the community and doesn't really understand the term. Dinker projects are where you have an animal, like Levi here, who looks different than a normal ball python for whatever reason. And for him, it's pretty easy to tell. He has like really, really bright oranges. He has a super, super reduced pattern. He has a strong black back. He's pretty cool. Also, his belly looks awesome. It's almost like pied tracks down him. Now, you have an animal that looks different, and sometimes this is from a pairing that you have where you are putting, let's say, a Mojave to a pastel, and an animal that doesn't look like either. It's completely different, pops out. And there are animals that have come from this. The Monsoon project came from this. It happened in captivity, Dave Green paired 2 different snakes and out popped a Monsoon. And he established the project. You have to prove that it's genetic, you have to prove that it's different, and you have to prove that it is a viable investment to the market. If you are able to do all of this, you can turn your Dinker project into an explorative project, where instead of just proving that it's genetic and that it's different, you are seeing how it works in different combos. And if you can get enough people excited in it, you can create new genes, and this is where a lot of like high-end investment comes. Every single morph in the ball python community that's already established, it started out as a Dinker project somewhere. So I think that Dinker projects are critical for the health, but because there is like a huge gamble on it, you don't know if the appearance is genetic. It might just be a one-off normal. It might just be a mutation, but it might not be inheritable to the offspring. So things that you have to kind of keep in mind. You might spend a decent amount of money, a decent amount of time, a decent amount of effort growing up animals that only produce normal ball pythons. So I think that Dinker projects are super cool, and it's really, really fun to like work it, but there is some risks involved. So just keeping that in mind. Also, just when it comes to getting like import ball pythons, wild caught tend to have the greatest chances for like diseases, parasites, things like that. Captive hatch, less so, because like they are captive hatch. This snake, Levi, has never actually lived in the wild at all. His mother was, or the dam, I don't know how it's pronounced. But anyways, the snake that laid his clutch was collected from the wild gravid, and then the clutch was incubated like artificially, and then once the babies hatched, that's how they were like captive hatch. They were hatched in captivity, even though the parent came from the wild. So that's just one thing to consider when you are looking at getting into a Dinker project, is if you are going to be getting a wild caught animal or even a captive hatched animal, you want to quarantine even longer than you normally would, just in case there's any disease, any parasite that you wouldn't have normally caught from a captive animal, captive bred animal. So if you are interested in getting into a Dinker project, I highly recommend Outback, because they are one of the biggest importers of ball pythons. And again, you can have a Dinker project from captive bred captive bred ball pythons, but I feel that the animals from Africa have a greater shot of them actually being a new gene, or a gene that hasn't been discovered yet, rather than an animal that's from a captive bred situation, because in a captive bred situation, it could just simply be that there was a gene at some point in time that was misidentified, or maybe there was hidden hets, and it can kind of make it muddier on whether or not it's an actual new gene versus just something that wasn't identified correctly. So, just things to consider when you are considering getting into a Dinker project. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you guys enjoyed it, please like, comment, subscribe. If you guys aren't following us on Instagram, or if you have any questions, definitely head over to Instagram. We are at Leviathan Snakes. And the reason why I say go to Instagram is that you can DM us, and it's way easier to have like a personal one-on-one conversation than it is on YouTube, where you pretty much can only talk in the comments. So definitely check us out there. If you like the video, please like, comment, subscribe, all of the regular YouTuber stuff, call to actions at the end of the video, and we will see you next week.